Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. As we reconvene the open plenary, I'm pleased to note that our government secretaries and ministers are going to be followed by 4 outstanding corporate leaders. It gives me particular pleasure at this time to introduce Archie Dunham, because in addition to many of his other achievements, Archie's also a predecessor of mine, having also served as chairman of the United States Energy Association. Archie is currently chairman of the board of ConocoPhillips. Before the merger with Phillips Petroleum, Archie was the chairman, president, and chief executive officer of Conoco. His honors and accomplishments are numerous, including the significant achievement of separating Conoco from DuPont, creating substantial shareholder value, and then merging Conoco with Phillips Petroleum to create a new global oil giant. Please join me in welcoming a true global business leader, Archie Dunham.
Thank you very much, John. Good morning and welcome to Houston. I really appreciate being included on this distinguished panel and proud to participate in this historic summit with Secretaries Evans and Abraham and Ministers Graff and Yusufov. When President Bush met with President Putin in Moscow last May, the two leaders acknowledged the emerging energy relationship between Russia and the United States and called for continued cooperation in the development of effective production sharing agreements and other legal frameworks so that multi-billion-dollar joint projects could move forward. This summit is an important step in that process. All of us here today, Russians and Americans alike, are aware of the opportunities inherent in closer energy contacts between us. Russia has long been a major oil producer. In August, it surpassed Saudi Arabia in current production, but today it exports less oil to the United States than Iraq. Russia's oil exports are improving the living standards of the Russian people and can provide the stimulus for economic growth across all sectors of the Russian economy, and this is very encouraging. In fact, I see more economic progress underway in Russia today than in nearly any other country of the world. At the same time, the United States has an urgent need to diversify its sources of energy to ensure that we continue to experience stability of supply and reasonable prices. Oil-consuming nations benefit from a stable and diverse group of oil exporting countries. The convergence of these developments can bring substantial benefits to our respective nations and peoples, and it's our objective over the next 2 days to accelerate that vision. I just recently returned from a week in Russia, where I had the pleasure of meeting Minister Graff, the president of Lukoil, Viget Alekperov, and other prominent Russian political and economic leaders. This was my first visit to Russia as chairman of ConocoPhillips. However, it was not my first visit to Russia. As many of you know, ConocoPhillips was formed in August by the merger of Conoco and Phillips Petroleum. We are now one of the world's largest energy companies, with operations in 49 countries, including Russia, and we're headquartered here in Houston, Texas. ConocoPhillips is proud of having one of the longest records of continuous involvement in Russia of any U.S. company, and we hope to enhance this record by undertaking new Russian projects in the future. Let me briefly review our activities in Russia. ConocoPhillips, then Conoco, was one of the first international energy companies to respond to the opening for foreign investment in Russia in the late 1980s. This was when the USSR law on joint ventures laid the legal groundwork for international companies' involvement in developing the USSR's oil and gas reserves. By 1991, we had established a pioneering Russia-U.S. joint venture, the Polar Lights Company, in the Nenets Autonomous Okrug. This was the first project with foreign participation to commence operations in the Timon-Pechura region in the Russian Arctic. It has been a true partnership. Conoco is a 50% shareholder, and our Russian partners are AGD, now a Lukoil subsidiary, and Rosneft. Over 1,000 Russian nationals were employed by Polar Lights during the construction phase. 165 Russian contractors were used to build the process, pipeline, and production facilities. The final investment totaled approximately $400 million. Currently, Russian nationals make up 95% of our workforce. I remember vividly the efforts we made to strengthen our friendly relations with local residents. Henry Kissinger once remarked on a trip to Moscow in 1992, and I quote, "I'll do anything for caviar," and probably did. Well, Henry had caviar. I eat raw reindeer meat dipped in blood, which was considered a delicacy in the far north, with the local reindeer chief to ensure the success of the Polar Lights project. And that's how committed Conoco was to seeing Polar Lights succeed. And Polar Lights has succeeded. Cumulative oil production from the Ardland field has exceeded 90 million barrels, and we've generated a steady flow of tax revenues for the federal and regional treasuries totaling over $300 million. The project has been successful in other ways as well. It has earned numerous recognitions for its environmental protection initiatives. This recognition includes Russia's Lomonosov Award, which we received twice, and the Corporate Environmental Award of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. The ecosystem of the Russian Arctic is one of the most fragile in the world. In Polar Lights, we were able to bring together the best of Russian and U.S. expertise on how to operate in sensitive northern environments. We minimized our footprint by using ice pads instead of gravel pads to support drilling rigs and roads. Thus, when the snow melted in the spring, the land returned to its natural state. In the summer, we used helicopters to transport equipment to avoid scarring the tundra with roads. When Conoco merged with Phillips on August 30, we created a company that now ranks as a major world producer and refiner. We are a robust, nimble, and innovative new competitor on the international energy scene. Both companies had long-standing reputations for being technologically advanced and environmentally responsible. Together, we have much to offer, and we're eager to do more in Russia, particularly in the Taman-Pechura region and the Barents Sea, where we have been working with Lukoil, Russia's largest oil company, and with Gazprom and its Russian partners. Our interest in Taman-Pechura is the Northern Territories project. These fields are believed to hold recoverable reserves in excess of 1 billion barrels of crude oil and 2 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Estimates indicate that these resources could directly and indirectly contribute $25 billion to Russia's economy over the life of the project. Taman-Pechura rivals the North Sea and Alaska in terms of remaining reserves. Its development will be a major contribution to the world energy market. Creation of new infrastructure and an alternate global export route for Russia via the Arctic Ocean will be included in the project. Another good example of the future promise of this region is the Stockman Gas Project, where ConocoPhillips has been working with Gazprom to develop this major gas field. The supergiant Stockman field in the Barents Sea will be one of the next generation of mega projects that will maintain Russia's position as a leading supplier of natural gas to the world economy. Full development of Stockman requires an investment of $20 billion. Over the life of the project, which will be about 50 years, it will generate $200 billion in revenue to Russia. Now, during my meeting with Minister Greff in Moscow in September, I was gratified to hear him praise ConocoPhillips for all we've done in Russia and to say further that he would welcome additional investments by our company. ConocoPhillips, as I said, is eager to do more in Russia as soon as the administrative and commercial basis for our cooperation can be strengthened. In particular, we need to see the adoption of a consistent and comprehensive production sharing agreement framework, which was called for in the joint statement by our two presidents last May. Production sharing agreements, or PSAs, establish a special legal framework that protects investors from unexpected changes in tax rates and regulatory policies. In effect, production sharing between the oil company and the government on a mutually agreed upon basis fixes the sharing of revenues for the life of the project. Other features that make PSAs attractive to investors is that the PSA model allows energy companies to accelerate cost production, cost recovery, and to control how and where they sell their share of production. PSAs have been used successfully in many countries for over 30 years. Russia enacted its PSA law in the mid-1990s. Now, for the PSA model to work in Russia, however, Russia's tax laws and other regulations need to be brought into harmony with the new law on PSAs. Unfortunately, this has not yet been fully accomplished. President Putin has been urging progress in this area for the past 2 years in order for Russia to have the predictable tax and regulatory frameworks needed for long-term investment. Otherwise, Russia will not be competitive with other countries in the world. ConocoPhillips does business in 49 countries. I am certainly aware that governments often move at a very, shall we say, deliberate pace, including the U.S. government, Mr. Commerce Secretary. The American humorist Mark Twain once joked at how lucky humankind was that when God said, "Let there be light," the U.S. Congress was not around to debate the issue. Otherwise, we still might be waiting for it. So the delays we experience in Russia today are not unique to Russia. But humor aside, the fact remains that until all components of the legal framework are in place in Russia, PSAs will not provide the stability and the security that are the whole reason for using this type of fiscal framework in the first place. And as a result, ConocoPhillips and other energy companies who are eager to invest in Russia will not be able to proceed. Our experience in Russia over more than a decade has convinced us that we need PSAs. We successfully completed Polar Lights, but we had to contend with more than harsh weather conditions, and we had to step carefully through more than delicate ecological systems. We had to live with tariffs that seemed to change on an almost daily basis, tax laws that seemed to change every month, regulations, export volume allocations, licensing requirements, and so on, all subject to sudden, significant, and unpredictable change. Consequently, Polar Lights is only marginally profitable, and we still have a large outstanding loan commitment on this project. All businesses need stable and predictable tax and regulatory frameworks. This is particularly true of the oil business, which is already subject to a high degree of price uncertainty, given the tendency of oil prices to fluctuate dramatically over time. A moment ago, I mentioned our Northern Territories project in partnership with Lukoil. Capital investment in that project will exceed $1 billion in the first 5 years, rising to a total of $3 billion over the life of the project. This will create jobs for thousands of Russian workers and energy specialists, and it will include millions of dollars in aid to local communities for social and environmental programs. We have been working on this project since March of 1998, when Conoco signed a memorandum of understanding with Lukoil. The following September, the local government, the Nenets Autonomous Okrug Assembly of Deputies, passed a decree requesting the inclusion of the Northern Territories project on the national government's PSA list. 2 months later, President Yeltsin signed a law including the project on the list of fields to be developed on PSA terms. Since then, we have continued to work with the provincial and federal governments to negotiate a PSA so that the project can proceed. We were encouraged at the end of June to witness the first reading in the Duma of the new PSA chapter of the Russian tax code. We have hopes that the second reading will follow shortly, along with some additional reforms that are needed to make PSAs workable. I would also like to share a few words about how the PSA process might be improved. At the present time, whenever a PSA requires approval, a separate commission is created to negotiate that specific production sharing agreement. There are 28 projects seeking PSA approval today, which means the government must create and fund 28 separate commissions. Governments do not move with the speed of light, and in many cases there are shortages of energy experts who represent the government. Furthermore, in creating the 28 commissions, the federal and provincial governments must agree on who will serve on each commission. And with all due respect to Ministers Graff and Yusuf, in the spirit of continuous improvement, I would like to suggest the creation of 4 or 5 permanent commissions, each responsible for a major region of Russia, and each staffed with full-time Russian energy experts whose salaries would be paid by the federal government. Such an arrangement would save significant time, allow the federal government to establish strategic priorities by approving those PSAs for critically important projects first, and improve the quality and expertise of the commissions, since it would be easier to staff fewer commissions with experts in the energy field. My meetings last month with Minister Graff and other Russian officials were encouraging. And of course, we all hope that this summit will spur constructive developments in Russia and U.S.-Russia energy relations. The United States can be a partner in Russia's growth. At present, Russia's oil sector is flourishing because current oil prices are favorable. But oil prices are subject to sudden and sharp fluctuations. To be assured of successful long-term energy development, Russia would benefit from partnerships with companies like ConocoPhillips. Major global energy companies have the financial resources to weather the ups and downs of the oil market and to stay the course through difficult times. Incremental investment will sustain near-term production, but it's not enough to create a sustainable future. Russia will experience a decline in production by the end of the decade if new, large reserves are not brought online during the next few years. Major projects cannot be developed quickly. They require negotiation and many years of construction. This means that negotiations need to be finalized soon and PSAs quickly approved. PSAs mean jobs for Russia. Introducing effective PSAs in Russia means $40 billion of new foreign direct investment and tens of thousands of new jobs for the Russian people. From the U.S. perspective, the desire to make major long-term investments in Russia has never been stronger, but has been inhibited by the lack of a legal and commercial framework to make the investments economically attractive. We believe that the PSA framework being developed in Russia at this time can be the catalyst that creates the vision of hope for the people of Russia. The PSA Commission negotiations must be conducted in the spirit of friendship and partnership, much like the genuine respect and friendship shared by our 2 presidents. This summit convenes at a unique time in the history of our 2 great nations. We are at peace. We are encouraged by the positive relationships being forged by our business communities. And our 2 governments wish us to expand investment and trade opportunities to enhance global energy security and stability. The challenges are great, but so are the opportunities. Together, we can build a better world, a safer world, and a more energy secure world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Archie, for that extremely insightful presentation. Few in our industry have the experience you have in doing business in the Russian Federation. Now I'd like to turn to our first Russian corporate speaker, Mr. Simon Kukas. Simon is the president and CEO of Tumen Oil Company. He previously served in executive capacities at Yukos Oil Company and Amoco Corporation. Interestingly, Simon's returning home to Rice University, where he was a postdoctoral fellow right here. He's received a variety of individual awards, while Tumen Oil has received various corporate awards, including the world's best fuel and energy company from the Financial Times in 2000. Please join me in welcoming Simon Kukas.
Dear Secretary Emmons, Уважаемый секретарь Эванс, министр Эванс и другие министры уже ушли, поэтому я скажу, дорогие коллеги и гости, для меня большая честь быть здесь, и моя первая речь здесь, в Райсе, была 25 лет назад. Тогда я говорил о России, об энергии, о религии. Это была такая смесь. И потом спросил, есть ли вопросы. Не было, только одна женщина спросила. Откуда-то с юга, спросила она. Россия такая же большая, как Техас. Таким образом, сегодня, я надеюсь, сегодня, завтра и в последующие дни мы сможем создать основы сотрудничества в области энергетики между двумя странами. Позвольте мне выступить на конкретной основе. Некоторые из моих предложений, может быть, и не покажутся вам совсем уж новыми. Тем не менее, я хотел бы обратить ваше внимание на них. Вот, посмотрим на эту схему. Здесь важно следующее. Это прогноз производства нефти в России приблизительно до 2010 года. По-видимому, в тот момент мы будем выпускать более 10 миллионов баррелей в день. И на экспорт пойдет 4,5 миллиона баррелей сырой нефти. Здесь важно, в частности, следующее, что стоимость добычи сейчас менее $3 за баррель, а в некоторых компаниях эта себестоимость даже ниже 2, у нас 2,40. И мы думаем, что к концу следующего года средняя себестоимость будет $2.40 за баррель. И это в основном делается за счет увеличения возможностей услуг и за счет того, что мы не расходуем деньги более на социальную сферу и используем активно западную технологию.
Okay, so you see export increasing. Now, despite high production, you can see Russia mostly exported its crude to Western Europe. However, there's several events will come in the next couple of years. Russian crude continue to increase production, export increasing. In the meantime, demand in Europe will stay the same, and the high-quality crude oil from Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan would compete with Russian crude. So therefore, it's really forces us now to anticipate the future, to look at other markets like China, Asia, or United States. This I just give you why this fundamental exists for sending crude to the United States. This is demand right now, 9.3 million barrels a day, and we anticipate, again, somebody might disagree with this number, then this demand, import demand, will grow 3 million barrels higher by 2010. In the meantime, Russia would increase export, and Europe will stay about the same. The taxation system in Europe will not allow people to consume more gasoline. So this is a kind of good news which illustrated on a graph. You can see 2001, 2005, 2010. But this looks good. Unfortunately, there is one bad news. It's the consumption, increased export consumption in the United States, mostly will be in the light crude area. And the Urals, it's kind of medium grade. So you see demand for Urals type crude goes slightly higher. So actually, if Urals comes to the United States market, it would replace existing suppliers, which is fine, good for the price for consumers. Unless two things occur. Either we segregate crude and we bring higher quality crude, which is possible. You'll see, I talk later about quality bank, or U.S. refinery get further modernized, which is unlikely because it's pretty expensive. Okay, so what we're doing here, we still continue to explore some export routes to the United States. You heard about UCAS. Some of you maybe heard that we sold about a month ago a cargo to Koch trading company, and part of it went to U.S. strategic reserves. It's about 120,000 tons cargo. But this is what holds us now, today. If you look, this is the price of Urals in the United States, and this is in Europe. So you see, right now, it's about the same. So therefore, since transportation costs about 45 cents more to get from Mediterranean to the United States, so we will be losing if you do it on continuous basis today. If we start shipping again on continuous basis crude to the United States. Although, you know, when you need to explore new markets, sometimes you have to bite the bullet and first couple of years take some loss. However, it's today, and again, from previous data, when I see Europe demand for Urals will stay the same, maybe goes lower, and U.S. small increase. I anticipate on this yellow line will start to go higher, and some differential appears which will compensate for this transportation routes. Of course, you know, if we create bigger ports, larger facilities, and new transportation routes, it can facilitate even further. Okay, it might take some time. So what we do in the meantime? So on the next slide, I show you some ideas what we have, and I would like to acknowledge my colleague Ed Morse from Amarada Hess Trading Company, whom we talked many times about what can we do now. Okay, first thing, which really would say help to establish cooperation and direct purchase of Russian crude for U.S. strategic reserves. And we've done it. It's already, we just need to establish a mechanism, pricing. I mean, it'll take time, and I think it's up to kind of governments to develop. The second one, it's a purchase of Russian fuel. You know, we're producing relatively good quality diesel, low sulfur, jet fuel, and low grade gasoline. They're not bad. So, you know, why not supply Russian fuel, for example, in Afghanistan? It was historically, Russia was supplier of gasoline and diesel and jet fuel in Afghanistan, so it can replace actually some of the supply from Saudi Arabia. So I think I would explore it. And the third thing, I'm really kind of I'm a little bit excited about it. I mean, there's many countries, particularly after September 11, who would like to have strategic reserves, but they don't have money to pay for this. So the idea then U.S. and Russian create a strategic partnership when Russia would supply crude and U.S. You know, provide some form of financing, and third world countries who are willing to have hold the strategic reserves would pay for storage and call options, unless they use it. When they use it, they repay the banks. I think many banks would participate, would cause, you know, some stability, and there are many excellent bases exist now which can be used for this and not fully utilized. Like this is almost 50 million ton, nice location, deep sea port in South Africa. In Singapore, outstanding base. This is 200 million ton cavern base in Canada, which is set up for Urals type crude, even heavier. So therefore, there's something to discuss on a government levels. Another thing which facilitate discussions, idea, at putting Russia in giving Russia membership in International Energy Agency. I think this agency is very influential, develop policy and strategy for energy in different areas, and would provide input from Russia, and also would be extension of Russian integration with GA nations. Okay, so next page, I would say this is more or less obvious things, but I think where both, U.S. can provide, either private company or government provide some assistance. Well, first of all, encourage long-term investment in Russia upstream with crude production for U.S. refiners. The idea is, let's assume a company, Phillips Conoco, they go in and they produce some oil. They will be off-takers of this crude and maybe develop a mechanism to take it to their own refineries. They can use lightening, blending, or take this particular crude. It would can remove this crude, excess of crude on the European market. So if you get kind of long-term contract, can provide company opportunity to either swaps or take it directly to the refinery. Well, develop new pipeline route and deep sea ports. There are several under investigation. One to China, another to far east of Russia, and the third one, maybe it's preliminary, but Lukoil will talk about north. But specific one, there's two pipelines which will be completed within 2 years. One of them will be Baltic, which will be bigger than people think, and also another one, Amishal, everybody talks to, which allow really improve opportunity to bring crude to the United States. So I think within 2 years we can bump the level of export to about 600,000 barrels a day to the States, after just these two directions open. This one, established quality bank. There's a lot of talk in Russia, but I think we not quite understand how to do it. But quality bank, most of Russian crude is very sweet, high quality, would provide excellent opportunity to bring anywhere in the world. However, it got mixed up with some heavy crude in the central part of Russia. So we need to, I would say this is on a corporate level. If big oil companies could help us educate, facilitate how to create quality bank. There's a lot of arguments. It's also a political issue. And another one could help him also immediately the export to the United States. It's facilitate Urals as a benchmark at this exchanges. So what's going on now? Urals, we produce about 20 times more Urals than Brent. Now, each time we want to hedge or make some kind of strata or some kind of financial instrument, from this trading, we have to go to this differential. It's very artificial, keep changing. And the question, it would help if whoever it is will assist our ministry to place the sooner the better Urals on the exchange. It's enough volume to do it, Anyway, physical volume is only 2% of the total trade anyway. The rest of it speculators. So this would help us to do better long-term planning, financing, and also if we get a good forwardation curve, do hedging. Now it's very hard to do hedging. So now a little bit about TNK, and this is the company. This is our reserves according to Milner and Lentz, pretty large. This is our production goes up. Initially we're planning to have it 4%. We end up increasing 8.5%, 8%, mostly through using Western technology. We'll be using Halliburton, Schlumberger, mostly Halliburton, large hydrofracking, and then, horizontal drilling and so forth. Next year we're planning to get up to 9%, but so overall in average it will be 5% and more than 5% increase up to 2010. There's a couple new oil fields we're planning to start in 4 or 5 years, but I would agree with you that unless we invite serious strategic partners on greenfield fields, would be hard for us to maintain this level of production for a long time. So I think Russia will peak out around 10 million barrels a day unless serious investment and serious partners there still. Okay, and now just one more slide, just give you the comparison with Russian companies. So what I did here, I put TNK plus Sedanka because owners of TNK have majority stake in Sedanka. So just for the field, this is Lukoil reserves, the Yukos, TNK, and next Tankneft, Surgut, Sibneft. And this is production. So Russian company going pretty big. Now, this is where our new potential oil fields. It's a Watt Greenfield project. It's a southern part of Tyumen region. It's a Kavitka gas field in eastern Siberia. We have license offshore Sakhalin. We got a huge oil field, huge, which we don't know even how to approach. So maybe later on we get partner on PSA and we start to develop. It's not on our books. It's over we think it's over 2 billion barrels. It's about northern part of Western Siberia. So this is the map. It's where our production sites are, either producing assets or new assets. And basically, that's all. I would like to thank you and for opportunity to give a talk. And I just wish, as a result of our meetings, we come up with some conclusions and recommendations which could benefit both countries and companies. Thank you very much. I have some copies of presentation, Russian and English, which are in the back of some of them.
Thank you, Simon. I know you're very proud to be back here at Rice, and we all found your address to be informative and thought-provoking. Our next address is from Mr. Alexei M. Kuznetsov. Mr. Kuznetsov is the Vice President of Rosneft, Open Joint Stock Oil Company. He began his career as a diesel technician, working on a drilling rig, and worked his way up to be a senior corporate executive. He's the author of various scientific works and has been honored for his extensive service to his motherland and to the industry. Please join me in welcoming Alexei M. Kuznetsov.
Ladies and gentlemen,
уважаемые участники саммита,
dear summit
передо мной
participants,
стоит
today
крайне сложная
I
задача,
am facing a very difficult challenge
господа Данхам
because
Kukis
Mr. Dunham and Kukis
сделали мой доклад.
basically did
Я
my
чувствую
presentation
себя
for me.
в некоторой роли
So
школьником,
here I
который не
feel almost
выучил
like
уроки
a
и будет
second grade kid who
списывать.
kind of like will fail to do his
Тем не
homework
менее, я
and has to
попробую.
cheat now. And well, let me try to do that.
Значит, мой доклад будет
So
посвящен
my
больше
presentation is going to
практическим
be
делам, которые осуществляет
devoted
наша компания
primarily
«Роснефть»,
to practical aspects of
сообща
Rosneft
с
operations,
американскими компаниями
especially
вот
the
уже на
practical
протяжении
operations which we
более 10
undertake
лет.
together with American companies now for over 10
На
years.
этом слайде представлена
This slide
география нашего
illustrates
сотрудничества.
the geography
Наше
of our
сотрудничество
cooperation,
развивалось,
and our
начинало
cooperation
развиваться на Сахалине,
started in Sakhalin,
в Западной Сибири,
Western Siberia,
дошло до Баренцева моря,
then moved all the way up to the Barents
И
Sea,
существует и на Каспии.
and also we do have
Мы
joint
работаем
operations
очень
in
тесно
Caspian
с компаниями
region.
Exxon,
We work very closely with Exxon,
Chevron,
Mobil, Chevron,
Conoco,
Conoco,
о чем уже
and
предыдущие ораторы говорили.
I believe that was mentioned
буду
in the
повторяться.
previous presentations.
Сотрудничество наших стран с нашей
Cooperation
точки зрения
between Russia and the United States is inevitable
Соединенные Штаты Америки
because
наибольший
the
потребитель,
United States is the world's largest consumer of oil and
Россия
petrochemicals,
один из наибольших
and Russia
поставщиков этих.
is one of the largest exporter
И
of those products.
сегодня, естественно,
And
создался очень хороший
today
момент для
we have a
того, чтобы
perfect
сотрудничество
opportunity
перешло от отдельных
to
от
elevate
отдельных проектов, наверное,
this
на
cooperation
массовые проекты,
from
на
single
сотрудничество
individual
между
projects to
государствами.
a larger scale and move it up to the national
Расширение
level.
сотрудничества в области энергетики,
Expansion of cooperation in the energy field,
ну,
in
жизнь
production
заставила.
and transportation, life itself forced us to
и
move in this
главным
direction.
рынком нашей сбыта нашей
And
нефти на сегодня
today,
действительно
our primary market
представляет
for Russian oil
Однако,
is indeed Western Europe,
э,
but
господин Кукис показал,
as
что Европа
Mr. Kukis clearly illustrated, Europeans have
и
limited
нам надо выходить на
demand,
рынок.
and we do have to venture
Сегодня
into new
очень активно
markets.
в России прорабатываются
Today,
различные варианты транспорта нефти.
Russian officials are working on evaluating different transportation arrangements which will enable to export Russian oil. For example, the Far East version, which will allow us to export oil
Очень
produced in
активно
Far East
об
and
этом будет докладывано
Eastern Siberia. Also,
последователями нашими,
uh,
следующими ораторами.
we are actively
Мурманский
pursuing
вариант.
Murmansk option,
И
the northern
не
seaport,
надо забывать
and
и
also
как бы традиционно
don't forget
средиземноморский
traditional
вариант
transportation routes, namely Mediterranean.
отрапортовать
For example,
собрание
I can say today that Rosneft company has entered into agreement with the Marathon company to conduct joint studies and conduct feasibility studies of moving Russian oil through Mediterranean Sea
порта Лук
to Loop seaport,
хорошо работает.
which I believe works pretty well as we speak.
Я вам могу честно признаться, что я не записывал.
Well, I have to be honest. I did not copy my presentation from ConocoPhillips
О разделе продукции.
about the PSA legislation,
И,
but
российских компаний
I think that the approach,
действительно соглашаются.
whether it's a Russian company or American company, is almost identical. Indeed, PCA legislation is necessary, is required in Russia, and so far seems to be the only
Боязненно
arrangement which can provide some safety and security to investors.
компания, которая на 100% принадлежит
Rosneft is the company which is 100% owned by the state,
сегодня
and therefore today we're being appointed as the government's representative in the PCA type projects and to facilitate their projects. So we're currently responsible for 15 projects, which represents about
планирует
50% of all PCA type projects which have been scheduled to be undertaken in Russia.
Ну, наши страны, с нашей точки зрения, могут
In my opinion,
при разработке определенных
our
механизмов
countries, provided that we develop certain mechanisms for
как бы гарантом
further
стабильности
cooperation, can become
в
the
секторе мира.
international guarantee for energy stability for the rest of the world.
Колебания цен на нефть
Because
возросли более чем в 2 раза.
over the past 5 years,
Поэтому
the magnitude of world oil price fluctuations increased by twofold. So I believe that a new regulatory regime is absolutely inevitable, and it will serve the interests of the
стабилизации необходимо
population of the entire globe.
на поставку российских
So as a result, I believe that introduction of Russian and Kazakh oil on international markets will greatly contribute to this price stability and predictability.
форум
In addition, we would suggest also to set up a international forum which will include largest exporters and importers, to set up some kind of a price corridor or framework which will enable the successful development both for oil producers and consumers. And I will also like to support Mr. Kuka's statement that, yes, it is a time and we need to introduce Russian oil to international markets, and I believe that Ural brand can be a very successful competitor to existing brands. Let me touch upon some specific regions where I feel can become the area for very fruitful cooperation between Russian and American companies in the most immediate future. Let me start with the northern parts. That could be a joint exploration of oil and gas fields in the Barents Sea. Why I started from this region? As you can see from this diagram or this map, Rosneft is heavily active in this area. It's been traditional field of operations for Rosneft, and we're going to expand our presence there. For example, now in cooperation with Gazprom, we're working on the Razlomne oil field, and also we've acquired rights to the Scotland oil field. So I think that this region can hardly be fully explored and developed by one party alone. Here in front of you have a couple of numbers which represent what does this Stockman oil field carries, and once again Stockman field is the one we recently acquired rights to in cooperation with Gazprom. In addition, we plan to build a new refinery. That project we're undertaking in cooperation with Surgutneftegaz company. That refinery will be located in the Baltic Sea region, and that will be another option to transport our products. Let me turn your attention to Far Eastern region. We are actively pursuing projects named Sakhalin 1 and Sakhalin 2. We are very close to putting Sakhalin 3 online also in the near future. And this is the project which is being undertaken by Rosneft and ExxonMobil and Chevron Texaco. And another interesting region, very interesting region, is Yakutia. Today, Eastern Siberia has been left sort of behind, but I think that in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll turn our attention to that region as well. So we have to be ready, and we have to get ourselves prepared for new transportation routes. We'll need to build a new pipeline linking Eastern Siberia and Far Eastern region of the Russian Federation. And I think that that will be a very interesting route to move oil and petrochemicals from Russia to the United States and other countries of the Pacific Rim. So as you see from this slide, also where our company Rosneft has very heavy presence, and we've been there traditionally for a long time. Those are the numbers describing the technical parameters of the pipeline which we need to have built from Eastern Siberia to Far East. Okay, Yakutia. As I've already mentioned, Yakutia is a very interesting region, especially in terms of the known reserves, both of oil and natural gas. And I think that in the next few years, we will see the same burst of activity which we've experienced in Western Siberia in the recent past. So this is another opportunity for joint projects between Russian and American businesses.
Очень активно наши, я имею в виду российские и
Our
американские
companies,
компании,
and here I mean both Russian and American companies, are very actively involved in the Caspian region.
мы сотрудничаем
As you know,
с рядом
we work with a number of American companies in the Caspian Pipeline Consortium,
к разведке и разработке
and currently we are beginning to explore and develop Kurbanganzi oil field in the northern part of that region, and giving the similarity of the interests of the companies involved in the Kashagan oil field, I think it will be most beneficial if we can join their infrastructures and try to build some single facilities which will be able to process and serve those two different oil fields.
Значит, что наша компания имеет на
So what
Каспийском регионе?
do we have in the Caspian Sea? Number one, we have a fully operational facility. So far, it's been working onshore, but it's planning to expand its operation to offshore fields as well. And in conclusion, let me just brag a little bit about our accomplishments, which we have not related to oil field, and to talk about that telecommunication bridge between our company established with the United States, namely our corporate telecommunication network. As you can see from this picture, today we already have a communication network which successfully cover all areas of our geographical areas of our activities and provides a stable link, telecommunication uplink with the United States. And let's hope that this telecommunication uplink will become the model or a template for a bridge we're going to build between our countries in the oil and gas industry. I do look forward to our fruitful cooperation in all our joint endeavors, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Kuznetsov. We appreciate your insight, the breadth of your operations, and what was an excellent presentation, and we really appreciate your being here today. Our concluding speaker this morning is Mr. Peter Robertson, Vice Chairman of Chevron Texaco. In this capacity, Mr. Robertson is responsible for worldwide exploration and production. He assumed his present position on January 1st, 2002. Prior to his current responsibilities, he served as Vice President, Chevron Texaco Corporation. He joined Chevron in 1973 and has had a variety of assignments. Mr. Robertson has also served as a corporate officer in various Chevron subsidiaries. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Peter Robertson.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank my fellow panelists for their remarks, and to thank Barry Worthington, particularly, and the USEA for inviting me to join this distinguished group. As the final speaker of the session, it's my obligation to point out that while everything worth saying has already been said, it hasn't been said by everyone. So let me be brief, and may our lunch break run long. As I say, it's an honor to represent Chevron Texaco here in Houston. It's a fitting place to launch this important dialogue. As some of you may have seen, one American journalist wrote recently that with Russia's growing energy sector, Moscow is on its way to becoming the next Houston. Well, with all of the Russian representation at this conference, I'm tempted to say that this week, Houston is looking a lot like the next Moscow. We've come to Houston, all of us, to answer the call of Presidents Putin and Bush for greater dialogue on our shared stake in the continued growth of the Russian energy sector. And if they were here with us in Houston, I think they would already be encouraged by the ideas that we've exchanged and the common ground that we've already found.
Today's dialogue is tomorrow's deal, and the relationships we form at summits like this are the foundation of successful partnerships for the decades ahead. We've been hearing a lot today about the remarkable growth in Russian energy. As we know, this is part of a much larger transformation, more than a decade underway, of the old Soviet command economy into a modern global market economy. The people of Russia chose a bold and challenging course, and now are finally unleashing the entrepreneurial spirit that had lain dormant so long. The results have been impressive. Unemployment had gone down, and between 1997 and 2000, the share of Russian GDP that is made up by government consumption declined by half, and foreign exchange reserves doubled. State-owned enterprises are being replaced by private entities. Citizens are using the power of free enterprise to own property and to start businesses. And for all the new businesses springing up across Russia, we're also seeing the revival of one of its oldest businesses, oil. In the past decade, we've witnessed the kind of explosive growth that marked the start of the Russian oil industry. Between 1988 and 1998, Russian oil production fell almost in half, from 12 million barrels a day to around 6 million barrels a day. Drilling fell off sharply, as did investment, but the trend has been successfully reversed, and in 2001, production was already up 7.5%. The massive increase in output in the last couple of years, nearly 500,000 barrels a day each year, is the biggest boost in output of any country in the world. It's little wonder that by the turn of the 21st century, energy exports accounted for 90% of Russia's growth in GDP. What we're seeing is nothing less than a renaissance in Russian oil. As other speakers have made clear, that's required a significant restructuring of the industry itself and its relationships with the rest of the world. As our Russian guests can confirm, the rise of Russian energy has taken the rapid reinvestment of capital, attention to efficiency measures and technologies, market reform, and an improved climate for investment. It's taken new pipelines and oil terminals, new agreements for cooperation between companies and governments. In short, it's taken the combined efforts of the public and private sectors in Russia with the support of their partners here in the United States and elsewhere in the world. So at the start of this new century, Russia stands poised to be an even bigger player in the global marketplace. We know that few countries can match its reserves, and no country can match Russia's unique position, standing astride two continents, stretching all the way to the steppe of East Siberia and the shores of Sakhalin Island. The recent impressive growth in Russia's oil production has been largely based on turning around the productivity of Western Siberia. The next big step for Russian oil and gas development is clearly going to be in the frontier areas, including Sakhalin and the Arctic Shelf. Western Siberia still has a great deal of potential left and will continue to provide a steady and reliable source of cash for years to come. It is an area successfully managed by Russian companies, and production there is growing with Russian capital and the assistance of international service companies. So what then is the role of international oil and gas majors in Russia in the future? I see that role as being defined by opportunities where companies like Chevron Texaco bring clear added value. Chevron Texaco's strengths include the ability to bring proven and experienced management expertise to new ventures, cutting-edge technology, ability to partner effectively, and of course capital resources. There may be a role for international companies in established oil and gas producing areas such as Western Siberia, but our focus, I believe, will be on the frontier areas. Now presented with an opportunity in such an established oil region such as Western Siberia, there is an economic case that could be made for undertaking such a project under Russia's existing tax and license regime. The infrastructure already exists, the reserves are accessible, and revenue can be generated relatively quickly. For frontier plays, however, such as Sakhalin and the Arctic Shelf, everything is different. Complex, high risk, high cost, and with huge investments committed up front before there's any meaningful revenue. To undertake such an investment requires clear terms and conditions. A commitment that a fiscal regime in place during the investment phase remains in place during the revenue phase and that sunk costs can be recovered with confidence. In the short term, PSAs can provide that confidence. Though I expect that their application will be limited over the next few years, PSA legislation will provide the necessary early stimulus to opening up the challenging frontier areas to exploration. The Karinsky Block in Sakhalin-3 is one such prospect, and you've heard about that already, where Chevron Texaco has a 33% interest in partnership with Rosneft and ExxonMobil. We're encouraged by the progress that has been made with PSA legislation in Russia over the last few months and look forward to the PSA tax chapter becoming law before the end of the year. PSAs have the ability to attract large amounts of capital that not only can open up the frontier, but will build infrastructure that will facilitate the further development of Russia's continental shelf. Looking beyond PSA, I'm encouraged by the moves to reform the law on the subsoil. If that legislation can be developed successfully, it will be eventually a natural successor to PSAs and will eventually make PSA-type contracts redundant. However, in the near term, for these kinds of projects, PSA legislation is essential. U.S. companies like Chevron Texaco stand ready to help Russia fulfill this potential, ready with investment not only of capital, but of our other assets, our technology, our expertise, and our personnel. As our Russian partners are telling us, it will take all of these elements if we're going to replace more of Russia's maturing oil fields with new ones. It will take all these elements if we're going to develop the offshore opportunities we see in Sakhalin, for example. The most potentially rewarding opportunities are also the riskiest, and the best way to manage that risk is through partnership. There is no one-size-fits-all definition for partnership in Russia or anywhere else for that matter. At Chevron Texaco, we define partnership as an unwavering commitment to building productive, collaborative, trusting, and beneficial relationships with governments, other companies, our customers, our communities, and each other. We use this definition not just because it's aspirational, it's also practical. At its core, partnership is a pragmatic way for companies like Chevron Texaco and countries like the U.S. and Russia to tackle challenges that are too big and risks that are too complex for any one of us to go it alone. Few of any industries face the kinds of obstacles that ours does on a daily basis. Capital and technical, geopolitical and environmental, safety and health. It's crucial that we meet these challenges together. Each partner needs to know up front what the other is expecting and stands to gain. Dependable partners set clear ground rules and make sure they're respected. No hidden agendas, no shifting standards, just an honest dialogue about common interests, the kind of talks we're having here today. And those interests need to be balanced. For a partnership to succeed and be sustained, both sides have to bring something to the table and have to walk away with something in hand. As Presidents Bush and Putin made clear in their joint statement last May, the way forward is through partnerships built on mutually beneficial basis. This vision of partnership has defined our company's efforts in Russia since the close of the Cold War, when we started doing business there. It's what Dave O'Reilly and I were in Moscow to discuss just last week. In fact, we took the entire Chevron Texaco board of directors to see the opportunities for themselves. We didn't just take the board of directors, we took the board of directors and their husbands and wives. Chevron Texaco has a long-term commitment to expanding our presence and our partnerships in Russia. If anyone wants to know what partnership means in practice, and it's already been done, I'd point them to the Caspian Pipeline Consortium. As Ian MacDonald, the General Director of CPC, will surely describe later today, CPC shows what we can achieve when we work together. Chevron Texaco and its partners in CPC, 3 governments, 9 other companies, including Lukoil and Rosneft, have, I think, shown convincingly that complex business arrangements, multiple cultures, and technological challenges are not insurmountable obstacles to success. Russia's participation has been critical to that success. And as a 24% shareholder, Russia will be a key partner and a key beneficiary as we move toward CPC expansion, as set forth in the 1996 agreement. Even with the CPC set to move an impressive 500,000 barrels a day in 2003, CPC shipper owners tell us there's a clear need to substantially expand the pipeline from the end of 2005. If we expand the pipeline in the same way we built the pipeline, as partners who share risks as well as rewards, then I'm confident we can realize the full potential of this landmark project. At this point, I need to thank the involvement of Energy Minister Yusufov in the affairs of CPC. His commitment to upholding the principles of CPC's foundation agreements, as well as his support for expanding CPC, should give all foreign investors confidence that they can take on major projects in Russia with confidence. CPC is important, but it's only one of the important and promising projects that we see right now in Russia. Across the vast expanse of Siberia, in the Sea of Okhotsk, there's another. As I mentioned earlier, Chevron Texaco has a significant stake in the Kurinsky block in Sakhalin-3. It's highly prospective. It's certainly risky, but in our view, it's undoubtedly worth the investment and effort. Below those 150 meters of water lies an estimated 500 million tons of oil and gas equivalents. To develop daunting offshore prospects in environmentally sensitive areas like these, we know what kind of commitment it's going to take of financial and human capital. We know what kind of technology it's going to take. And we know what kind of rewards there may be for the Russian people who live in Sakhalin, who stand to gain in quality of life, and for the Russian companies who are poised to meet the demands of the expanding Asian market, not to mention the west coast of the United States. My company looks forward to continuing our dialogue about Sakhalin and building a partnership that can really turn these prospects into reality. We're also looking carefully at the potential of other Russian projects in the hopes of making greater investments and stronger partnerships. And we're not the only ones, as Mr. Dunham's remarks have made clear. Companies like ours are hearing and heeding the administration's call for greater direct U.S. investment in Russian energy. In that spirit, we welcome all that Secretaries Evans and Abram are doing to encourage more investment and put it on a solid footing. We applaud Secretary Abrams' decision to fund a study of Eastern Siberia oil reserves so we can all better understand the risks and opportunities in what is in many ways uncharted territory. Of course, that's what we do in this business. We break new ground, push the parameters of what was once thought to be possible. And uncharted territory is often the most exciting place to be. The challenges ahead are, as ever, considerable, but so are the opportunities. For the United States, stronger partnerships in Russia could mean a crucial investment opportunity and greater diversity of supply. For Russia, it could mean expanded access to markets, capital, and expertise, as well as a quicker and more complete integration into the global economy. For both countries, it could help fulfill our respective national energy strategies and move us not only toward greater energy cooperation, but greater energy security for our nations and others in the industrialized and developing worlds. That said, let's make sure that the dialogue that we begin here in Houston doesn't end here in Houston. Let's match Presidents Bush and Putin resolve with our own. And let's turn these opportunities into realities. As partners, there's no end to what we can achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter, for demonstrating your and Chevron Texaco's commitment to this effort with forceful clarity. And I'd like to thank all this morning's speakers for getting us off to what I think is a terrific start. It's clear from everybody's comments that the areas of opportunity and common interest far outweigh the differences. This summit shows every indication that it will turn a great idea into real actions and real results. Now the buses will take everyone back to the Warwick Hotel for lunch and the afternoon sessions. I suppose that nobody's disappointed about the fact that we're running a few minutes early, and I'm not going to screw that up. So this meeting is adjourned.